Live.
All right, coming at you. WBD, the continued onslaught and the consequence of the merger. Hulu price increases on the horizon. We're going to talk about some anime, some box office drama. We're going to talk about Ryan Murphy. So much coming at you shortly, so stay tuned.
Packed episode. Stay tuned. All right, we're back.
We're back. Episode 23.
23.
Of the Entertainment Business Review. I am Brian.
I'm Jordan.
And we are the two dumbest smartasses talking about the entertainment business. We try to make the business of entertainment simple for y'all so
That's
you
right.
can enjoy it and understand it.
And in an entertaining way, unlike some podcasts, so we won't mention. But
That I also listen to.
that we listen to, of course.
But not as interesting. All right, so the first thing on the docket, fresh off the press, Warner Brothers is laying off about a quarter of its TV studios.
Yep.
Which is, I mean, that's a huge, huge deal.
I also heard that I just remember this. I also heard that they're canceling some of their like Stage 13 or some of their like pipeline programs.
Yep.
To like get people like young writers into their system. That canceled those programs, which was kind of controversial because it was like meant to be a funnel to like increase like diversity and like women and that like in the Hollywood system, and then Warner Brothers just like
Zaslav was like, it's not doing
it's
it
like
for
it's
me.
not making money.
Yeah.
I mean, fair. I mean,
Look at the numbers here.
Yeah,
It doesn't make sense.
I mean, it's a good cause for sure, but if it's not making the company money, you can't. How can you blame
Yeah.
him for being like, look, we have negative EBITDA. Like I can't fund.
We can't just throw money
this-
at creatives just for the heck of it.
which they're used to. The creatives are really used to it. at this
Yeah.
point, so.
Well, here's some context. So, I mean, obviously, Warner Brothers and Discovery has been merging, and there's been a series of layoffs already. So, August, they laid off about 70% of staff. That one impacted, I think, there's some international, some family content. This round is related more about the television group.
Programming?
Yeah, programming. And, I mean, these are a lot of people, but it makes sense because Warner Brothers and Discovery both have large TV network businesses, right? So there's a lot of the org that's dedicated to these kinds of things. So it was only a matter of time when some consultants came in. I was like, no, you got to trim the fat here. There's a lot of overlapping stuff.
A lot of fat.
Yeah. So it makes a lot of sense, and it also is in line with David Zaslav's management style, right? So he's going to take a look at all the things, and no one is safe when he's taking an axe to things.
Yeah.
Which I think both of us appreciate from a business perspective. Makes a whole lot of sense.
I mean, yeah. I mean, from a like people getting fired aspect, like that's sad. Like obviously people are losing their jobs in a pretty shitty macroeconomic environment. But like realistically for the company, if you're thinking like, overall with the company and like what Zaslav's doing, he's probably doing the right thing for the company, honestly, and for shareholders. Like
it does kind of suck
you know.
because of this merger, there's a whole ton of things that they have expenses for, right? There's like merger expenses. There's there's the parachutes that all the executives are getting. Like essentially what's happening is they have to make up for all these expenses that they have to do as a result of the merger, and the people getting impacted are basically
not
employees.
To mention, not to mention the debt that they have to pay off. Like that's been like the whole company's a mess, and it's funny because like I feel like the industry like. Creatives in particular, like I can't believe Warner Bros. Is doing this. Like, yeah, because you guys have no idea what their financial situation is. If you actually understood kind of what their financial situation is, you would understand this makes like everything he's doing makes complete and utter sense.
Yeah,
you need to think about the economics in this business. To what Zaslav said, which I think is hilarious. Did you see that line? He like said it to some executives. The Jerry Maguire like line, which is like we're not in the like movie friends business, but the movie business or something. I forget what the line is.
He flipped it around or something.
Yeah, he's like, we're not here to make friends. Like we're here to make money, basically. And I love it's just the creatives and like the old executives at the time be like, what do you mean? It's like Yeah, you guys
Why
are
are
a
you saying
business.
that, Zaz?
You guys are a business. Can't
Yeah.
believe you guys found out now, but
Yeah, as part of this article that I'm reading off, it's on Deadline. It was saying that these layoffs are part of a broader WBD leadership pledge to find at least $3 billion in savings. That's that's a lot of money.
that is a lot of money.
So yeah,
It's
so
not going to be headcount alone for sure.
there's
but-
a whole ton of things. I mean, they also mentioned that they're going to be combining the services, which makes sense from an operating cost perspective. That's happening next summer, but from that, there's all this development work that has to happen. They have to renegotiate deals. There's all this crap that they have to do to prepare for that. And in 1 year to get a basically brand new service with double the amount of content is really hard.
Yeah.
So they have a path ahead, and it's gonna be interesting to watch.
I don't envy Zaslav. I mean, it's a difficult position that he's in, to be honest.
For sure.
I mean,
But I do envy
he's
his
doing the right
$200 million
things.
compensation. That I do envy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure worst case scenario, the company just goes under and he just goes off to his mansion in Beverly Hills.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, who cares at that point? Like,
yeah, it's like personally, he's gonna be okay
Yeah.
regardless. But it's true. Like, I mean, they're gonna have to cut a lot of production. But like, I saw like I think it was like last week, there was like huge news, at least in Hollywood, that like Velma was gay. Which is like okay, like
Yeah.
all right, cool, I guess. I was like, this is like revolutionary. I was like, I mean, okay. I don't think like this has done a lot for the gay movement. Be like, oh my god, Velma is gay. And, like, who cares? but then I saw also that then there was another Scooby Doo thing where Shaggy was. They changed all the races basically for everybody except for Fred, who's still a white dude.
Yeah.
But I'm mentioning that because there were two different shows. Like that was a different show, so they're doing two Scooby-Doo spin-offs.
Yeah, I know there's an animated
Why?
show coming out, and Mindy Kaling is
that
Velma, right?
one.
That's
that
the one. Okay.
Yes, and I was like, wait, is that the one that Velma was gay in? They're like, no, it's a different one. I'm like, why are you making two Scooby-Doo remakes? Nobody asked for a Scooby-Doo remake in the first place, let alone two of them. Like, what are we doing?
I do love Scooby-Doo.
I don't understand. I do,
It's
but like,
because
to
of
make
this-
that in the movie, it's like you're making too much stuff.
It's the nostalgia factor, right? There's
is.
millennials that are like, oh, I want to watch Scooby-Doo stuff.
Is that our generation though, or is that like even the generation
I don't know.
before
That's why they
us?
made Hocus Pocus too. So whatever.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's fair.
All right.
But
So
yeah.
the next thing that I want to talk about here, this is kind of interesting. Hulu is raising prices. So their ad-free plan, their ad-supported plan, they're all increasing $1 to $2. But the interesting
today?
thing,
Or yesterday?
as of yesterday.
Ooh, I didn't know that.
And the interesting thing is their bundles are not changing pricing at all. So what they're basically saying,
they're trying to get
here-
people in the bundle.
Yeah, they're trying to push people to the bundle, but they're also emphasizing that the bundle for them is very, very high value, and the lifetime value of someone who's in the bundle is going to be higher because one, they're paying more,
Yep.
and two, they stick around for longer
of
for all
course.
three services.
Of course.
It makes total sense. And the reason why
Yep.
they're increasing the price is because they know that the willingness to pay, they're trying to funnel people that way. And so they're just like, all right, well, there's some willingness to pay here. We could probably squeeze as much as we can.
We're gonna make this such
out
a
of the
bad deal
consumers.
for basically we're gonna make the bundle such a good deal for you that it's stupid for you not to do the deal.
Yeah,
And then
exactly.
you're a low churn subscriber.
Well, they're able to now play with that
Yeah.
that price sensitivity, right? They're trying to see how much can we push it before people are like, nah, we're gonna go to the bundle. And even if they go to the bundle,
classic
that's a win
Disney.
for them. Right?
Yeah, classic NBA Disney.
It's classic Disney, right? Like increasing prices because
See where the line is.
You
See
know
where the line is.
consumers want that shit.
It's true. It's true. Hulu has good stuff. Honestly,
Yeah.
I don't blame them.
I agree. Like if they weren't so kneecapped in terms of their growth their growth prospects because they're not going international, like Hulu is probably up there. But I think
They make great content.
yeah,
honestly.
they do.
Their
They do.
content's really good.
Disney's still trying to figure out what they're going to do with Hulu, and this is just interesting. I think it's probably the right move from a business perspective. It just sucks for consumers.
Yeah, it's interesting that one thing I noticed that they're not increasing the MVPD option, the live TV. That's interesting because that's been pressured up over the years to go up.
Yeah.
And so the fact that they're not raising that I find interesting.
Yeah, I mean that is not growing, right? Like MVPDs are not growing, the cable packages are not growing, but it's a way for them to transition people from the MVPD structure into streaming.
I am curious if because I think Disney is vying for the NFL package. I think. And I think they're competing with like Apple and Amazon, and they're probably going to lose because Apple and Amazon will pay out of their ass for it. But if Disney got it, that would be massive, and I think that would get a lot of people on Hulu Live TV. So if there could be, I think the I don't know. I think the dominoes for cable are going to fall, but I think people are still going to kind of want the cable. I don't know. We'll see.
Is NFL rights, like if they do get the package right, where is that going? Live TV and Hulu, or is that going on ESPN Plus? Like
I don't know.
Where do they put that?
I think they can handle it any way they want. It depends on the contract. I'm sure they draw up, but like I would assume that they'd want it on. I mean, it's live programming. As far as I know, Disney Plus doesn't do it. It would be a savage move to put the NFL package on the ESPN Plus. That would be fucking savage.
Yeah, but they would probably increase the price a lot.
Oh yeah, and people would sign up for that. I mean, it was savage for what DirecTV made us do to get the NFL Sunday ticket. You know, so
yeah.
I mean, it's still better than DirecTV. So it's not unprecedented for them to do something schemy like that.
I honestly don't see them being able to like win in those negotiations and pitches because
the NFL probably won't want it either.
Yeah, it's so valuable to some of these other services right now. Like if you look at like acquisition patterns when it comes to like football periods, it's wild.
Oh,
like
sure.
These spikes are wild.
Yeah.
But yeah, so interesting with Hulu. Let's see how it impacts churn.
Yeah.
Going forward. All right. So your favorite topic.
Yeah. Okay.
Anime.
So the Morning Consult, which is a really good newsletter, and they do a lot of good research on tech, and they do a lot. But
they have the best charts.
They do. They really do have the best charts. That's a good point. Their data might not be the best, but their charts are fire.
Yeah.
And they had a really interesting take very recently. Like I think I saw it this morning about the rise of anime. And in case people don't know, that's animation specifically driven from Japan. But people, it's funny because a lot of people are like, "Oh, I don't know what anime is," but like if you said Pokemon, they're like, "Oh, I know what Pokemon is." It's like it's just the style that it's in, but it's imported from Japan. That's really all it is, and people know the style. But it's interesting that it's becoming very, very popular in the United States. And obviously, like I'm biased, but like it's very, very popular in the United States. And I think there are like a lot of different. First of all, I think Hollywood needs to start paying attention to a lot more. And I think they are. I think people at Netflix and Hulu, like they're starting to realize how important it is.
Yeah. Or they have been developing that kind of content for a while. Knowing
they've been trying.
Yeah. Like the Baki series on Netflix.
Netflix has tried to make their own.
Yeah.
Disney had that like the anime like Star Wars thing that was really interesting. Hulu's always had this deal with Crunchyroll. And then Netflix just came out with like the cyberpunk anime that's supposed to be really good, actually.
Yeah.
But they're getting into it because they see the data and they see that a lot of people are watching anime. And I think I frankly think there's a couple of major reasons for it. But I honestly, the more I watch anime, the more I realize that it's actually, I think the major popularity with anime is that it's not, I hate to say this, but like it's not woke. Like it's very much what Hollywood used to be, which was like pure entertainment,
storytelling.
It was just pure storytelling, world building, like basic topics, like very basic topics, like just men trying to be heroes.
It's apolitical.
It's apolitical.
Yeah.
It's a fantasy adventure. It's fantasy adventure. It has nothing to do with Western politics at all, and it's not trying to push a message other than that. Like every story pushes out quote messages, but they're like. They used to be just very, like, universal, like, we should, love more than we hate, or, like, just, like, very basic, like, storytelling and very basic, like, messages. And it's just, but they do things that, like, you would not be able to get away with in American culture these days. Like, in most animes, there's a horny dude. There's a dude who is incredibly horny.
Yeah.
And there are women who dress really provocatively. Like, you can't do that anymore. And, I think not only do men like that, but women like that too. Like, it's very empowering for, like, a strong woman to be attractive.
There's something, like satisfying about the unfiltered nature of it.
Yes, I think there's a lot about the unfiltered nature, and that's not driven by any agenda other than just to entertain you and just to provide you with an escape.
Well, the crazy thing is, I'm looking at some of the numbers on this article, and I'm going to call out a couple that are like shocking. So, the global anime market size reached 22.6 billion in 2020. Just to give some level of just like perspective, the global box office market size is 21 billion.
Yeah.
So what they're essentially saying that is it's
bigger than the theatrical
larger.
business.
Yeah, it's bigger than the theatrical business. Not only that, but Crunchyroll itself, which of course you are a proponent of, has 120 million active users, and 5 million paid subscribers. Like like Peacock's ad tier doesn't even have that many, nor does
and I'll tell
some
you,
of the other ad supported.
And
tiers.
I'll tell you, Crunchyroll isn't making their own stuff, so it's way cheaper.
Right,
it's way cheaper. Like they are absolutely like making profit. Like they're
like almost outsourcing it, right? Like the actual production is outsourced.
Yeah, I mean they obviously secure licensing fees, but they're not only are they not producing it, but even it's all animation, which is also way cheaper to produce than the Lord of the Rings. You know, so
here's what a lot of people won't understand. So if you invest in content, there's an element of risk because you're putting down a lot of money in order to produce something, and you're expecting to get some sort of return once it's released, once it's sold or licensed. There's a risk involved there. There's a probability that it might be successful, a probability that it might be not successful, and then that's going to determine whether or not that thing was a risk.
Right.
But if you're licensing it, you're basically doing it based on some sort of agreement, and a lot of the times it's like, if it's like ad support or something, there's rev share, right? Like there's a whole ton of like different formats that they can create so that there's less of a risk, right? So that risk is mitigated by these kinds of agreements.
Yeah.
So it's a smart model. They have also like one of the most loyal fan bases out of all the streaming services, right?
I would say anime fans are also in particular very passionate, and they buy a lot of merch. They they play a lot of games.
Yeah, it extends beyond the content.
It extends. They're like super fans, so they spend a lot on like manga. They spend a lot on a lot of other things. So it's a very good business to be in, and like if you look at the demographic info on this, like
this
the
is a great
demographic
chart.
is amazing.
Yeah,
it says so. It's 25% Gen Z, 42% millennials, and then 21% Gen X, and then the rest is older. But like, I would say that we were talking about this before. Like, it's probably underestimating Gen Z adults. But then also like notice it's. In terms of the demographics watching it, it's way more young. Which means that it has
lifetime value.
Longer lifetime value. Yep. And what they talk about in this is like they're basically saying that like older generations, you know, they view animation basically as kids content versus millennials grew up with anime and they're like, yeah, it's not like I would enjoy this as an adult too.
Yeah.
And so they continue watching it. So it's eventually just going to bleed until everybody's watching it basically. And you don't have these older generations who have this preconceived notion of what animation is.
Yeah.
And so it's a very good industry to be in because it's just, there's only room to grow really.
On this exact chart, there's a couple other things that are very, very interesting to me. So they're saying that gender-wise, there's a 60-40% split, 60 men, 40% women, which I kind of think that's probably the difference is probably more pronounced, I would say, because these are self-identified fans, right? But I think if you just picked a random sample of mainstream people, like it wouldn't.
Right.
It would probably skew more male.
Yeah.
What I thought was hilarious was the ethnicity chart because anime is typically like an Asian form, right? But the self-identified fans was majority non-white, first of all. So already there's a lot of value here. But the Asian percentage is 7%. So it's the smallest one. And then 18% black. 28% Hispanic, which is hilarious, but something I've also noticed in the last couple of years, right?
Yeah, I will tell you, like, Black and Hispanic people fucking love anime.
Yeah,
maybe
100%.
they just have disproportionately like better taste than white people, because but honestly, like because I don't remember what the actual demographics of Black and Hispanic people are in the United States, but it's not. 46%,
right?
And so it's disproportionately to Hispanic Black people. So the first thing, there's two things I'll say to that. First, is I'm kind of surprised the black one is lower because
it should be higher. Right?
It should be it should be higher. Like
yeah.
every like all my black friends are like super into anime, and and there was a there was actually something that came out the other day of I think it was Karl Anthony Towns or somebody in the NBA was like, yeah, definitely like 80% of the NBA watches anime.
Yeah,
like, but it's true. It's super popular amongst like Hispanic and black men.
Anecdotally, when I'm at the gym, there's always at least one black or Hispanic guy that has like a Dragon Ball Z tank top or something. Right?
It's amazing.
Like it's very
awesome.
prominent. Yeah,
it's awesome. And it was something I will say. I did notice how small the Asian part is, which is hilarious.
Yeah,
but
weird.
But something I'll also say is, and this is what I find really interesting, is that Hollywood always goes around being like every story needs to represent the world that we need in. You need every demographic represented because that's the only way that other like races could enjoy this story is if they see themselves in it. There's no black people in anime ever. I mean, there sometimes is, very rarely, but very rarely. Most of the time, there's not, and black people still somehow they still like anime. Maybe because they like stories regardless of the
I will say though, like the depiction though of other races in anime is still a little bit like.
Oh yeah, I mean it's still not great.
It's
still a little sus.
Yeah, very sus.
One of my
racist.
It's definitely a little bit racist.
Yeah.
And I think one of the funniest ones I saw was in like My Hero. They depict Americans in it. And they look like the dumbest. They look terrible, and you're like, I can't even tell if you guys are making fun.
There's
of
also a couple
like,
in like what was it? The bald one.
The bald
One Punch Man.
Oh, One Punch Man.
Yeah, there's
really?
some depictions of other races, and I was like, ooh, this is very sus.
I don't remember that. but I will say, going back to like I think audiences think it's funny.
Yeah,
like they don't take offense to it. I think they're just like, this is just, again like a creepy horny old man. It's like. Nobody's getting offended over that. They're just like, that's just the character. He's just, there are people like that in the real world. I wish there wasn't, but there is.
Yeah,
and people just find it funny.
I do think this is very timely because we've been talking about like how they underestimate the value of anime for so long on this podcast, and they haven't really done anything. And following on that, another article, and I'm just going to skip something else here, but another one that we also have been talking about is Ryan Murphy being way overpaid on his deal with Netflix.
Yeah.
And that's the next thing on this on our list here, which is...
good segue.
There was an article from VIP Plus. If you don't know, the Variety intelligence platform, they do a lot of really good deep dives on entertainment, business-specific topics. They have a subscription, but it's way worth it. And this particular article is talking about how Ryan Murphy was paid $300 million in 2018 for a 5-year deal. 4 out of 5 years into his deal, he's released. He has one bona fide hit in Dahmer, the monster, or whatever, the serial killer, true crime story. And what we've always been talking about on this podcast is, when have we ever seen any hit come from Ryan Murphy on Netflix?
All right, yeah. So let's like even like just like set the scene. So he gets paid. He had Glee and he had American Horror Story. So Netflix was just like, all right, the data says, because we have no brains of our own, so we just follow the data. Our brains say that Ryan Murphy delivers hits, so we're gonna pay him $300 million so he can write exclusively for us, which is like, everyone in Hollywood at that time was just sucking Netflix's giant ball sack. So they were like, yeah, definitely, like seals. Meanwhile, those of us that had rational sense were like, how the fuck is Ryan Murphy ever going to create $300 million in value for Netflix?
Well, think about that, right? Like $300 million divided by 5, that's $60 million per year. Like,
yeah,
there are whole teams that can't even develop
one
60,
person.
Yeah, $60 million in revenue for a company, over a year. Like,
also, it's just like, it's really good to pressure creatives to make that like a bunch of shows, like because the creatives are always best in like when you speed them up. we saw what happened in Star Wars. You know, that was always best when you speed up the creatives.
I mean, it's crazy because like the incentive of a $300 million upfront for 5 years, that disincentivizes someone, right? I mean, like if you're getting the check, like. Well, and you're not basing it on back end, right? This is Netflix we're talking about, so they don't get back end profits. They don't get any of that stuff. Like
he's not being judged on his performance.
Yeah, the performance goes into a black box, right? You don't even know how good it actually does. I mean,
so what did
crazy.
he come out with? So he came out with The Politician. I remember that. And I said I wanted to watch it. And I didn't end up watching it.
Yeah,
because it didn't get great reviews.
Yeah.
What else did he come out with?
There were a couple other ones. The politician, Ratchet.
What?
Ratchet? I don't know. 2-season series
That's
order.
Not good because I never heard of it.
I've never heard of it. And then there was another one.
Oh, I did see. I never watched this, but I do know what it is. I have seen it before.
What is it about?
Like seen it as in like I've seen somebody watch it and I didn't end up watching it.
You've seen somebody else watch it. Okay.
Yes.
All right. It wasn't good enough for you to
Hollywood.
watch.
I remember Hollywood coming out, and I
Yep.
remember also wanting to watch that, but then it got terrible. Well, all these shows, I was like, oh, this looks interesting, and I saw the reviews and went, no.
Yeah, but see, that's the weird thing. Like on Netflix, you need it to be an absolute bombshell hit for it to be even worth you to watch, right? Like, and that's the value. So if you're only getting out of the 4, he doesn't have much time left, right?
No.
There's just no way he's gonna have any more hits.
To be fair, time left to make his contract seem worth it, but
Right.
but he's already deposited that $300 million in his bank account, so he doesn't care.
Yeah,
But-
and the other thing that this article highlights, which I think is actually pretty smart, is that there's a lot of trends that perhaps pushed the popularity of Monster, right? Like there's just a general recent interest in true crime stories, and like social media definitely was a buzz with this kind. So it's not like just because
He made a really good show.
Yeah, made a really good show. I mean, he was even using like a real life story, so it's not like it's an original piece of.
He didn't write the
storytelling.
story.
Yeah, he didn't
Right.
write it himself, or I mean, he was the showrunner, yes, but this was like it was based on a true story.
Yep.
And then we could go off a whole tangent on like whether or not true crime stories are even good for society, but like.
I mean, that's true.
It's
That's
a kind of a
good-
cop-out series of a hit, right? Because people would have been interested anyways.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, I think we've been saying this all along. And, yeah, I mean, no wonder why they haven't done any deals, like, of this size recently, right? Like,
No.
it
They
was
literally stopped.
Ryan Murphy, Shonda Rhimes.
Shonda Rhimes actually is 2 for 2. Huge.
Yeah.
So, like, sometimes I guess it does kind of work. But,
Yeah.
but
But
Ryan Murphy, even then.
I'm curious how they amortize that cost.
Ha! That's
Right?
a good, I don't
Like,
know.
because-
That's a good question.
Yeah, because they have to invest so much. Okay, so not
there's
only
no way
are
they're
they
putting-
paying
yeah.
him, but they also have to invest a lot into actually producing the show, and there's some sort of economic value that they attribute to each show afterwards, right? Like, how do they?
Curious. Yeah. I
Yeah,
don't
how do they
know.
match it? Like, it just doesn't.
Well, they must
none of the numbers
amortize.
make
They must
sense.
amortize the shows. So they're also they're amortizing his shows and his contract.
Yeah,
So
and his
there's
contract's
like
massive.
6 different amortization schedules. Like, how long are they dragging that out for? If they keep the shows in perpetuity, I don't know. They could amortize that for 30 years.
Like, I know
they
Netflix
bankrupt
hires
themselves before then.
Yeah, like Netflix hires really smart people from like the best consulting firms, the best banks. Like
Yeah.
how did they make those numbers work? I just don't.
they just made it work.
I don't understand it.
I mean, when Wall Street floods you with cash because of your quote potential to own the entire
virtuous cycle.
Yeah, I mean, Netflix was basically coming out, be like, we're going to own the entire entertainment industry, and Wall Street was like, here's my money.
Yeah.
'Cause I don't understand anything.
Yeah.
Well,
it's nice that all these stock prices are correcting a little bit.
Yeah.
Not nice for my my nest egg.
not
but
for my
whatever.
portfolio, yeah, but yeah.
Anyways, all right. So moving on to our last meaty topic. So the box
Amsterdam
office.
box office, yeah.
It's been kind of an interesting summer / fall
It's been
for
interesting.
box office. Right?
Yeah, it's been interesting. Like September through October,
Mm-hmm.
you had Avatar like doing pretty well. I think it clocked in like 80 million
Yeah, from a re-release,
globally.
which is crazy.
With the re-release, which is just awesome.
Yeah, awesome because it's such a good movie and like, yeah, why not give
Yeah.
James Cameron more money?
Yeah, why not?
Um,
Also, it's genius marketing. It's genius marketing
Oh,
for the
for
second
sure.
movie. Like
For sure.
to remind people like about the first one.
I also read
Feel like-
somewhere that they like redid it so that there's like some like level up in the definition. Like
Oh, really?
It was like it was doctored to be better.
Remastered.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
remastered. Which now it makes me want to watch it even more.
Yeah.
Again. But there's been other successes that have been box office hits that were low budget.
Yep.
So Barbarian, Smile, some of these lower
Horror.
budget horror movies.
Horror is kind of like anime.
Mm-hmm.
Horror is one of those like niches that tends to be very valuable because it's like anime. It's very cheap to produce.
Yep.
And you have very loyal fan base. So just like I like horror. Like
Yeah.
I really enjoy horror movies, and it's a very particular niche that I really like. And people will pay extra for it specifically
Yeah.
for horror. And the box office is proving that.
Yeah,
It's
I
interesting.
mean, all of these ones had pretty good word of mouth, so they had pretty good legs to actually break even. And then we're seeing all these big, like bets that are not paying off. So I mean, Amsterdam here, which is it's
Amsterdam's
wild. Like
sad,
I was talking to
honestly.
my wife the other day. I was like, how did I not hear about this movie.
Yeah,
because
bad
it has,
marketing.
Like literally everybody in it. Christian Bale, Margot Robbie, John David Washington, Chris Rock.
Yeah. Wait, Chris Rock was in it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
Chris Rock was in it.
Well, what's Chris Rock? Yeah, I'm pretty sure Chris Rock was in it.
That's wild. I barely heard about this movie.
Yeah.
I remember when I
But
first
it
saw the
cost
trailer.
$80 million to market the movie. Like I just
Where was that? Yeah, where did that marketing
where did that
go?
money go? Yeah. But I mean it made how much? It made $6.4 million in its opening weekend.
Oh my god! And
at 3,000 theaters.
Campaign was $70 million.
Yeah.
Or $80 million. Just the marketing campaign. So the budget was
was 80.
Oh my god! They're
more.
gonna lose like 90% of the entire cost of the movie.
Yeah, it was $80 million to produce.
God, this is a huge
$70 million up to $80 million to market. That's $160 million. They made opening $6.4 million. So, on the high end, they're going to make about $15 million gross, which means they're losing over $150 million on this movie.
So, question for you on this. Now, I'm just generally thinking, like, there's been a lot of talk about like the death of the movie star.
Uh-huh.
Do you think this proves or has any influence on that argument at all? Because, like, for one thing, like, it's like this is a huge star-studded cast with people who like are the top of the movie of like Margot Robbie, Christian Bale, John David Washington. These are like A-list actors. Like, these are the people who you'd think would be able to draw audiences, but they didn't. Now, is that their fault? I don't know, because you got to also know that they're in it, and you have to know what the movie is in order to like even be to be brought into the theater for it at all.
Yeah. Let me just highlight a couple of the points. The other cast includes Rami Malek, Taylor Swift, Chris Rock, Anya Taylor-Joy, Robert De Niro, Michael Shannon.
Okay, so these are like almost all A-list.
All A-listers.
A-list, yeah.
All A-listers. And like, it's weird because you'd think with all these people, there'd be at least a good opening.
Yeah.
Right? But that hasn't been the case. And I'm not sure why. Like, this kind of flies in the face of logic a little bit because, like, you would have expected it to do decent in opening box office. And the ratings are bad, so you would have saw it drop off. But the fact that there was $80 million in marketing and nobody went to watch it, it's kind of an enigma. And that's what they kind of call out in this article too. Like, they don't really know what happened, and it was tracking up in the mid-teens, which also, like, essentially they're saying this is going to be a bomb.
Yeah,
this is going to be a bomb from the beginning.
But it bombed even harder than it was supposed to bomb.
The only point that they basically say is that this movie was for an older audience, so it was kind of a risk to begin with, because then younger audiences aren't really interested in a movie like this, and it's not a guarantee for old audiences to turn up for something like this.
Yeah.
And like, it was really about them working with David O. Russell, the director. Right. That was the draw for much of this talent. But I mean, the talent's not getting paid.
No, they got fucked. I mean, that's an incredible. They're going to lose over $100 million.
Well, I mean, I guess some of these guys would still get their paycheck, right? Because that's where the $80 million budget goes.
Yeah.
But in terms of back end, they're not making anything on this.
No, I mean, do they even get back end these days anymore? Really? Like, I don't know. Yeah,
probably not.
They're probably not. But even then, like, I'm looking at this article, like, they're like, well, let's make another comparison. Elvis was likewise a risk. I'm like, what are you talking about? I mean, of course it was a risk, but it's Elvis.
Yeah.
Like, it's a biopic about Elvis. Of course people are going to want to go see that. When you have a movie called Amsterdam, like, the first question everyone's going to ask is like, well, what is it about?
Yeah. I think it was a misfire.
I did mushrooms in Amsterdam, like, when I was a kid. Like, other than that, like, people don't know what it's about.
Honestly, I think it was a misfire based on, like, the story, the marketing, and just, like, what is this about? Like, I think there was a general confusion about this.
I will say, I think this is indicative also that the movie star's dead. I mean, this is all these people in this movie should have. I mean, Taylor Swift, like, we were just talking about Harry Styles.
Himself.
Harry Styles was in the other one. Like, that was probably a box office draw. Taylor Swift didn't do it, and she's probably bigger than Harry Styles. Like, it's kind of bad marketing, but also it seems like even they must have reached a good amount of people, and even those people didn't. They couldn't even though, like, the star power just didn't overcome the fact that people didn't know what the movie was about. Which, back in the day, people used to go to the movies to see movies they didn't really know much about because it had a star, and that was it. And now that era is kind of dead.
Yeah, I definitely support your view. The other thing I'll call out is that it wasn't like it was limited release or anything. Like I almost looked at it and I was like,
I think it was
okay, maybe they released it only in like a couple theaters, but it was released to over 3,000.
Yeah, it's plenty.
Which is like more than half the theaters in the United States. So I'm like,
that's a wide release.
It's a wide release.
Wow.
So it's kind of perplexing, but yeah, that's the state of the box office right now. It's kind of I mean, if it's not like a mainstream hit, like people aren't going to show up to like these like kind of like small Hollywood-esque movies that are based on like, you know, that is another way for Hollywood to pat themselves on the back. People just won't turn up for it.
It's really sad because I feel like, you know, we've preached on this podcast a lot of like, we really want Hollywood to take shots at the original content. Mm-hmm. And then shit like this happens.
Well, okay.
And it's like...
Let's revisit that. Don't take shots on original content just because you have a ton of stars attached to it. Like, take shots because the story is good, right?
Yeah,
like,
yes.
Like
they can't rely on movie stars to drive a completely organic story, regardless of what it is.
Yeah,
like it needs to just be a good story that appealed to people, and then people will show up. Kind of like I remember when I saw the trailer for It. I remember being like, I didn't even know it was written by Stephen King. I was just like, this looks cool.
Yeah,
like I remember seeing the trailer, like this looks really interesting. And so like I think if you can make an original concept that like is just really interesting and it's pretty clear what it's about in the trailer.
Yeah.
You know, you can kind of, you know, you can do something about it.
Yeah,
but,
so I just want to say, like, there's this Australian author that I really like. He's called Matthew Riley. A lot of his books have, like, in my mind, really valuable IP for just, like, genuinely good stories that hasn't hit in the market yet. Trying to figure out a way to option those books, but yeah, there's a ton of those.
Yeah.
All right, so the last thing we want to talk about. So this is pretty recent. When did this trailer pop out?
Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Wow.
I put an alarm in my phone for this, dude.
I remember I heard about the Super Mario Bros. Trailer because Chris Pratt basically posted about it, and I was like, "Oh shit!"
Well, yeah. So I'll tell you the timeline of my emotions with this. First of all, I'm a huge Mario fan and Nintendo fan just generally.
Yeah.
And so obviously when I was a kid, I had watched all of the other Mario stuff that they made in Hollywood before Nintendo was like, this was a huge mistake.
Yeah.
So I was just like, I thought Mario stuff was never going to, I didn't think Nintendo was ever going to trust Hollywood again, which fair enough. But when they came out with the news that they were making a Mario movie, I was like, oh,
skeptical.
Fuck.
Yeah.
But then they announced that it was going to be animation with Illumination and they were working on it together with Nintendo. I was like, okay. That's actually, if I wanted a Mario movie to be made, it would be that. Like, and that's a great studio. Like the Minions, that's a great studio.
I mean, they're up there with Pixar right now.
Yeah, they're doing just as well, if not better than Pixar in a lot of aspects. So then they announced the cast, and I was like,
fuck yeah.
I love and hate. I love it, but I'm also so confused. Like, some of the acting. Jack Black as Bowser, like Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong. I was like, these are all right. This could be interesting.
Yeah, I thought the casting is good. I just can't see Chris Pratt being the best.
Well,
Mario.
Okay.
That's the one thing that I'm like.
So I'll tell you. Yeah, the trailer. I literally rock hard the entire trailer, and then Chris Pratt spoke, and I was like, God damn it.
Yeah, no, I was the same way. I was like, you can't take Chris Pratt out of that voice.
No.
And also, like, just because he did really well on the Lego movie, like, doesn't necessarily mean it's good for other IP.
I think the thought process probably was like Mario is one of the most iconic voices. Like everybody in America everybody in the world probably knows what his voice sounds like.
Yeah.
So how do you take like his voice? I mean, they could have just gotten the original actor who did Mario and just done that because he could do it.
Well, I was like,
that's a
what
choice,
makes Mario's like his wahoo.
Yeah, he's a character actor. So like if he has long lines of dialogue, maybe that wouldn't work.
Yeah, but at least
know.
At least there is a way. I mean, voice actors are very skilled, so there's a way to like tailor it so it sounds good but still have character. Like the way I think about it is like Wreck-It Ralph.
Yeah.
And like Fix It Felix, right? They're like character sounding voices, but they're still able to have dialogue.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that's what I think they could have found someone to have that versus just having Chris Pratt, who sounds like Chris Pratt, be the voice of Mario, right?
I think they went really like we wanted to make this a huge celebrity thing, which like it's not bad because like I think I think Donkey Kong as Seth Rogen and I think Jack Black as Bowser is probably going to be amazing, honestly.
Yeah.
Particularly Jack Black as Bowser was incredible.
Yeah.
With everything Jack Black does. But like they didn't need to do it for this one. Like there's a lot of times where they're like, okay, you need movie stars to sell this movie. With the Mario movie, that's going to sell regardless of who's in it. Right. It really is. So like you really didn't need stars to be in that. Mm-hmm. And they chose that path, which is like, okay, but like it's just Chris Pratt doing Chris Pratt. And it kind of takes you out of it, which is one of my biggest complaints about entertainment generally is whenever I'm watching something and it takes me out of it, I'm already like, you've already lost me. And I'm like, come on. Like,
I will say the rest of it though, like the rest of the trailer really excited me as well. So I'm like really stoked. And it's a spring release, April next year.
It's correlating with the release of the Nintendo Park too in Hollywood for Universal.
Okay, great.
So it's coming out like the same time, which is excellent. Like genius. Like that's really smart. People are going to go watch the movie. They're going to want to go to the amusement park.
Right.
It's a great synergy. It's a great cross. Like yeah.
It's an NBC at its best.
Honestly,
like Symphony concept.
I give all the credit to Illumination. I think they've been one of the studios that has actually they've done their job and they've created wonderful, fun entertainment for people that allows them to escape, allows them to have a laugh. Also having just like good messages about family and love and whatever, like what Hollywood should be. Yeah. And Illumination has done that every single time. And now they're probably going to do that with Mario, which is great. Like you don't need politics or you don't need anything injected into Mario. Please, like just make it a fun story.
Yeah.
Just make it a good.
I think it's going to be good.
time.
I mean, it was pretty much like this is a Mario world that the whole movie's about, and it's going to.
And they did it right. They're not doing the weird.
So nostalgic.
They're not doing the weird like. You know, the Mario Bros. Like live action movie. Have you ever seen it?
Yeah.
Oh my God! Like I can't believe Nintendo let that happen. I can't believe like we're human beings who
drama
thought this
around
was a
it.
good idea.
There was definitely drama around it.
Oh my God! They had good cast too. Bob Hopkins is an amazing actor, and they had Dennis Hopper in it.
Yeah.
Like,
it's wild.
It was wild.
Yeah.
But this is exactly what it should be.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
We're both super excited.
Yeah.
I don't have any other recommendations. Maybe the trailer is just a good one for people to go check out.
Watch the Mario Bros. Trailer, because it gets, if you ever play a Mario game, it's like exactly what you probably wanted. Except
it makes
for
you
Chris
feel a
Pratt's
little
voice.
giddy inside. 'Cause you're like,
it does.
Oh, I'm excited about this again.
Yeah. The penguins come out, and you're like, ooh, yeah. Like I don't know. It brings me back to my childhood, which is always great.
Yeah.
So definitely watch that. And then I'm finally catching up on Severance. I'd never seen it. So I'm on episode 5. It's a little bit of a slow burn.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, it's a little bit of a slow burn.
Yeah.
But it's getting better.
It's more of like a heady intrigue than it is like fully like wild entertainment. Because you're trying to figure it out.
Right.
Know? Like that's what makes it interesting.
Yeah.
But I also like if you're a 9-to-5er, you kind of understand like what they're getting at, the themes of it and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah,
it does hit closer to home than some other shows.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a good one. Watch Severance.
Yep.
My favorite from last year.
Yeah.
All right.
Fair enough.
Well, I think that's a good place to end it.
All right.
Thanks for tuning in to episode 23 of the EBR. We'll see you next time.
All right. See you next time. Peace.